What if I told you that Edgar Cayce, the legendary, sleeping prophet, who predicted World War II, the stock market crash of 1929, and the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, also revealed 5 specific phrases that, when spoken by a man, are immediate warning signs that you should run, not walk, away from that relationship. These aren't just red flags. According to Edgar Cayce, these are soul-level warnings that could save you from years of emotional devastation, spiritual drain, and psychological manipulation. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what these 5 deadly phrases are, why they're so dangerous, and most importantly, what to do the moment you hear them. But here's what's shocking, most women ignore these warnings completely. They rationalize them. They make excuses. They think they can change the person saying them. Edgar Cayce discovered through his psychic readings that certain verbal patterns reveal the true nature of a person's soul. And some souls, he warned, are simply incompatible with love, growth, and healthy relationships. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share could literally change the trajectory of your entire life. Before we dive into these 5 dangerous phrases, you need to understand who Edgar Cayce was and why his insights into human relationships were so revolutionary. Edgar Cayce said that every soul carries a vibrational signature, a spiritual fingerprint that reveals itself through words, actions, and energy patterns. Between 1901 and 1944, Edgar Cayce gave over 14,000 psychic readings while in a trance-like state. But here's what most people don't know, nearly 3,000 of these readings dealt specifically with relationships, marriage, and soul compatibility. According to Edgar Cayce, the soul speaks its truth through the words we choose, especially in intimate relationships. Edgar Cayce discovered that manipulative, narcissistic, and emotionally unavailable people use specific language patterns that act like spiritual poison. These phrases, he revealed, are not just communication, they're energetic attacks designed to diminish your spiritual power, lower your vibration, and make you question your own intuition. And here's the most disturbing part, these phrases are often disguised as care, concern, or even love. That's what makes them so dangerous. So if you've ever wondered why your gut feeling told you something was wrong even when someone's words seemed right, Edgar Cayce had the answer. Keep listening, because phrase number 3 will shock you, it's the one that 90% of toxic people use, and most women never see it coming. Phrase 1, you're too sensitive. The first phrase Edgar Cayce warned about is deceptively simple but spiritually devastating, you're too sensitive. According to Edgar Cayce, sensitivity is not a weakness, it's a spiritual gift. He said that highly sensitive individuals are often old souls with developed psychic abilities, strong intuition, and deep emotional intelligence. When a man tells you that you're too sensitive, he's not just dismissing your feelings, he's attacking your spiritual gifts. Edgar Cayce discovered that people who use this phrase are typically operating from a lower spiritual vibration. They cannot access the deeper emotional and spiritual realms that you naturally inhabit, so instead of acknowledging their limitation, they try to convince you that your gift is a flaw. But here's the hidden danger, Edgar Cayce said that when you start to believe you're too sensitive, you begin to shut down your intuitive abilities. You stop trusting your gut feelings. You ignore the spiritual warnings your soul is trying to send you. This phrase is designed to disconnect you from your own spiritual guidance system. Think about it. Has a man ever said this to you after you expressed legitimate concern about his behavior? After you questioned something that felt wrong? After your intuition picked up on red flags that he didn't want you to notice? Edgar Cayce taught that your sensitivity is your spiritual radar system. A man who truly loves you will treasure this quality, not attack it. He'll want to understand your feelings, not dismiss them. He'll see your emotional depth as a gift, not a burden. If a man tells you you're too sensitive, Edgar Cayce said it reveals something dark about his soul's intention toward you. But that's nothing compared to phrase number 2, a seemingly caring statement that Edgar Cayce identified as one of the most dangerous forms of spiritual manipulation. You'll be shocked when you realize how common this phrase is, and how many women fall for it every single time. Phrase 2, I'm just trying to help you. Cautionary tone building to revelation. The second phrase Edgar Cayce warned about sounds helpful, caring, even loving. I'm just trying to help you. But according to Edgar Cayce, this phrase is spiritual camouflage, a way for controlling people to disguise domination as care, manipulation as love, and ego as service. Edgar Cayce said that genuine help comes from a place of respect for the other person's free will and spiritual autonomy. True helpers, he taught, offer guidance when asked, support without conditions, and always honor your right to make your own choices, even if they disagree with those choices. But when someone uses, "I'm just trying to help you," as a response to your resistance or boundaries, Edgar Cayce discovered this reveals a soul operating from spiritual pride, one of the most dangerous spiritual poisons he identified in his readings. Here's how this phrase typically shows up: you express discomfort with something he's said or done. You set a boundary. You make a choice he doesn't agree with. And instead of respecting your autonomy, he responds with, "I'm just trying to help you," implying that your feelings, boundaries, or choices are wrong and that he knows better than you do about your own life. Edgar Cayce taught that this phrase is particularly insidious because it makes you feel guilty for rejecting help. It makes you question whether you're being ungrateful, stubborn, or closed-minded. It's designed to make you override your instincts and submit to his will while believing it's for your own good. According to Edgar Cayce, people who genuinely want to help you will respect your no. They won't guilt you into accepting their guidance. They won't disguise control as care. And they certainly won't use your rejection of their help as evidence that something is wrong with you. Edgar Cayce discovered that souls operating from genuine love understand that the greatest help you can give someone is to honor their spiritual journey, even when they choose a path you wouldn't choose. Controlling souls, however, believe they know better than you do about your own spiritual growth. If a man consistently uses, "I'm just trying to help you," to justify overriding your boundaries or dismissing your feelings, Edgar Cayce said you're dealing with a soul that views you as a project to be fixed rather than a person to be loved. But phrase number 3 is even more sinister. It's the one Edgar Cayce called the destroyer of feminine intuition. And once you hear it, you'll recognize it everywhere. Phrase 3, you're being dramatic. The third phrase Edgar Cayce warned about is perhaps the most spiritually destructive: you're being dramatic. Edgar Cayce said that when a man calls your genuine emotional expression dramatic, he's not just invalidating your feelings. He's attempting to sever your connection to your feminine spiritual power. According to Edgar Cayce, feminine energy carries a natural gift for emotional expression, intuitive knowing, and spiritual sensitivity. These aren't weaknesses. They're sacred feminine qualities that have been honored in spiritually advanced civilizations throughout history. But in relationships with spiritually immature or manipulative men, these gifts become targets. Edgar Cayce discovered that the word dramatic is weaponized to shame women into suppressing their natural emotional and spiritual responses. It's designed to make you feel embarrassed about your depth, ashamed of your intensity, and guilty about your authentic reactions. But here's what Edgar Cayce revealed that will change everything: your emotional responses, especially the intense ones, are often spiritual information. They're your soul's way of alerting you to energy patterns, revealing hidden truths, and protecting you from spiritual danger. When you express legitimate concern about a man's behavior and he calls you dramatic, Edgar Cayce said he's essentially telling you to ignore your spiritual guidance system. He's asking you to suppress the very qualities that could save you from making a terrible mistake. Think about the last time someone called you dramatic. Were you responding to something that felt wrong? Were you expressing hurt over behavior that violated your boundaries? Were you having an emotional reaction to treatment that your soul knew was unacceptable? Edgar Cayce taught that women who allow themselves to be shamed for being dramatic often end up in relationships where they're constantly walking on eggshells, suppressing their true selves, and ignoring increasingly dangerous red flags. According to Edgar Cayce, a man who truly loves you will never shame you for the fullness of your emotional expression. He might not always understand it, but he'll respect it. He'll be curious about what you're feeling, not dismissive. He'll want to address your concerns, not ridicule them. Edgar Cayce said that calling a woman dramatic reveals a soul that fears feminine power and seeks to diminish it. But wait until you hear phrase number 4, Edgar Cayce called it, the spiritual trap, because it sounds so reasonable, so mature, so wise. Yet it's actually a manipulation tactic that keeps women stuck in toxic situations for years. This one will make you rethink every logical argument you've ever heard. Phrase 4, you're being irrational. The fourth phrase Edgar Cayce identified as a spiritual warning is, you're being irrational. This phrase is particularly dangerous, according to Edgar Cayce, because it masquerades as logic and reason while actually being a sophisticated form of spiritual gaslighting designed to make you distrust your own inner knowing. Edgar Cayce taught that human beings are not purely logical creatures, we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and that means we have access to information that goes beyond what the rational mind can process. Intuition, emotional wisdom, and energetic sensitivity are all valid forms of knowing that Edgar Cayce said were often more accurate than logic alone. When a man tells you you're being irrational, he's essentially saying that only his way of processing information is valid. He's dismissing the complexity of human experience and reducing all truth to what can be logically explained and intellectually justified. But according to Edgar Cayce, this is a fundamental misunderstanding of how spiritual truth works. Many of the most important truths about people, relationships, and life cannot be logically explained, they can only be felt, sensed, and intuitively known. Edgar Cayce discovered that people who weaponize rationality against emotional and intuitive responses are often hiding something. They use the appeal to logic to shut down deeper investigation into their behavior, their motivations, or their impact on others. Think about it. Has a man ever told you that you were being irrational when you questioned his behavior that felt wrong but that you couldn't quite articulate why? When you had a gut feeling about someone or something that turned out to be accurate, even though you couldn't prove it at the time? Edgar Cayce said that women, in particular, often have access to intuitive information that reveals relationship dynamics, hidden motivations, and future outcomes. When a man dismisses this as irrational, he's asking you to ignore one of your most powerful spiritual gifts. According to Edgar Cayce, truly mature and spiritually developed men understand that wisdom comes through multiple channels, logic and reason, yes, but also intuition, emotional intelligence, and spiritual sensitivity. They don't pit these against each other, they honor them all. A man who loves you will be curious about your irrational concerns. He'll want to understand what you're sensing, even if he doesn't sense it himself. He'll investigate your worries rather than dismissing them. He'll trust your intuition even when he can't explain it logically. Edgar Cayce warned that "you're being irrational" is often the last line of defense for people who are indeed behaving in ways that don't bear scrutiny. But the fifth phrase, the final warning Edgar Cayce identified, is the most dangerous of all. It's so subtle, so seemingly insignificant, that most women don't even recognize it as manipulation. Yet Edgar Cayce said it's the phrase that precedes the greatest relationship disasters. You won't believe how common this phrase is, and how devastating its true meaning really is. Phrase 5, "That's not what I said," or "That's not what happened." The fifth and final phrase Edgar Cayce warned about is perhaps the most insidious, "That's not what I said," or "That's not what happened." Edgar Cayce said this phrase is the calling card of what he termed soul thieves, people who systematically undermine your connection to your own experience and perception of reality. According to Edgar Cayce, your memory and perception of events are part of your spiritual sovereignty, your divine right to trust your own experience and learn from your own interactions with the world. When someone consistently tells you that your memory of events is wrong, Edgar Cayce discovered, they're engaging in a form of spiritual warfare designed to make you question your own sanity. This isn't about occasional misunderstandings or different perspectives on events. Edgar Cayce taught that healthy people can disagree about interpretations while still acknowledging that different people experience things differently. But when someone consistently denies having said things you clearly remember them saying, or insists that events you experienced didn't happen the way you remember, Edgar Cayce said you're dealing with someone whose soul is operating from a fundamentally dishonest vibration. Here's what makes this phrase so devastating: it works slowly, over time, like a spiritual poison. Each time someone convinces you that your memory is wrong, you lose a little more trust in your own perceptions. Each time they successfully convince you that that's not what happened, you become a little more dependent on their version of reality instead of your own. Edgar Cayce discovered that people who use this phrase consistently are often engaged in what we now call gaslighting, making you question your own mental and spiritual faculties in order to maintain control over you and the relationship narrative. According to Edgar Cayce, this is not just psychological manipulation, it's spiritual abuse. It's an attack on your soul's ability to learn from experience, trust your own perceptions, and make decisions based on your own understanding of reality. Think about relationships where you found yourself constantly second-guessing your own memory. Where you started keeping notes or recordings because you couldn't trust that your version of events would be acknowledged. Where you began to feel like you were going crazy because your clear memories were consistently denied or minimized. Edgar Cayce taught that your perception of your own experience is sacred. A person who loves you might remember things differently, but they won't systematically deny your right to your own memories and perceptions. Edgar Cayce said that when someone tells you, "That's not what I said," or "That's not what happened," in response to your clear memories, they're revealing a soul that prioritizes control over truth, dominance over love, and their comfort over your spiritual well-being. Now that you know these 5 phrases, you might be wondering, why are they so dangerous? What did Edgar Cayce discover about the souls of people who use these words? According to Edgar Cayce, every soul is on a spiritual journey, moving through lessons and experiences designed to promote growth, understanding, and love. But some souls, he revealed, become trapped in patterns of spiritual immaturity, patterns that make them incompatible with healthy, loving relationships. Edgar Cayce said that people who consistently use these 5 phrases are operating from what he called separation consciousness, a spiritual state where they see others as either extensions of themselves to be controlled, or threats to their ego to be neutralized. In separation consciousness, according to Edgar Cayce, love becomes possession, care becomes control, and relationship becomes a power struggle where someone must win and someone must lose. But here's what Edgar Cayce discovered that changes everything: these phrases reveal souls who are afraid. They're afraid of authentic emotional expression because it reveals truths they don't want to face. They're afraid of feminine intuition because it sees through their masks. They're afraid of being truly known because they haven't learned to love themselves authentically. Edgar Cayce taught that fear-based souls unconsciously try to recreate everyone around them in their own image, emotionally shut down, spiritually disconnected, and dependent on external validation rather than inner knowing. This doesn't make their behavior acceptable, but understanding it helps you recognize that their words aren't really about you, they're about their own spiritual limitations and fears. According to Edgar Cayce, when you truly understand this, you can hear these phrases with compassion while still maintaining absolutely clear boundaries about what you will and won't accept in relationship. Edgar Cayce said that walking away from someone who consistently uses these phrases isn't just self-protection, it's a spiritual act of self-love and divine alignment. According to Edgar Cayce, every soul has the right to be in relationships that honor their spiritual gifts, support their growth, and celebrate their authentic expression. When you stay with someone who consistently undermines these things, you're not just tolerating bad behavior, you're betraying your own soul's highest calling. Edgar Cayce discovered that souls who allow themselves to be diminished, controlled, or gaslit in relationships often struggle to fulfill their spiritual purpose in this lifetime. The energy that should be going toward growth, creativity, service, and joy gets trapped in cycles of defending, explaining, and trying to prove their worth to someone who fundamentally cannot see their value. But here's the beautiful truth Edgar Cayce revealed. When you have the courage to walk away from relationships that diminish your spiritual light, you create space for relationships that amplify it. According to Edgar Cayce, the universe always responds to acts of spiritual courage. When you choose your own spiritual well-being over the comfort of familiar dysfunction, you align yourself with higher spiritual forces that can bring you relationships of genuine love, respect, and mutual growth. Edgar Cayce taught that your willingness to walk away from what's wrong makes space for what's right to enter your life. If you've been in a relationship where these phrases were used against you, you might be struggling to trust your own perceptions and intuition again. Edgar Cayce had profound wisdom about healing this spiritual damage. According to Edgar Cayce, your intuitive abilities are like spiritual muscles. They can be weakened through disuse or abuse, but they can also be strengthened through practice and trust. Edgar Cayce said to start small. Notice your gut reactions to people, situations, and choices without immediately second-guessing them. Write down your intuitive impressions and see how they play out over time. Honor your emotional responses as valid information, even when you can't logically explain them. Most importantly, Edgar Cayce taught that you must be willing to be wrong according to others in order to be right according to your own soul. Your spiritual growth depends on your willingness to trust your own inner guidance, even when others question it. Edgar Cayce discovered that women who have been spiritually wounded by manipulative relationships often have incredibly strong intuitive abilities that were simply suppressed, not damaged. As you begin to honor your own perceptions again, you'll likely find that your spiritual gifts are more powerful than ever. After understanding what to walk away from, you might be wondering, what does healthy relationship communication actually sound like? Edgar Cayce said that souls operating from love consciousness communicate very differently. Instead of the 5 dangerous phrases, you'll hear things like, "Help me understand what you're feeling. Your sensitivity helps me see things I might miss. I want to support you in whatever way feels right to you. Can you tell me more about your concerns? I trust your instincts, even when I don't fully understand them." According to Edgar Cayce, people who are spiritually mature enough for genuine relationship understand that your emotions, intuition, and perceptions are gifts to be treasured, not problems to be solved. They're curious about your inner world rather than threatened by it. They want to understand your perspective rather than change it. They see your spiritual gifts as complementary to their own, not competitive with them. Edgar Cayce taught that in truly loving relationships, both people feel more themselves, not less. Your spiritual gifts are amplified, not diminished. Your intuition is sharpened, not dulled. Your emotional expression is welcomed, not shamed. Edgar Cayce believed that every difficult relationship carries a spiritual lesson, not because you deserve the pain, but because your soul is always seeking to grow in wisdom and strength. If you've encountered men who used these 5 phrases against you, Edgar Cayce said your soul was learning crucial lessons about boundaries, self-worth, and spiritual sovereignty. These painful experiences, while difficult, were preparing you to recognize and attract relationships of genuine love and respect. According to Edgar Cayce, souls who learn to identify and walk away from spiritual manipulation become powerful examples for others who are still trapped in similar patterns. Your healing journey becomes a gift not just to yourself, but to other women who need to see that it's possible to choose differently. Edgar Cayce taught that when you refuse to accept treatment that diminishes your spiritual light, you raise the vibrational standard for what you'll accept in relationship, and this creates a ripple effect that elevates everyone around you. Your willingness to walk away from what's wrong makes you a lighthouse for others who are still lost in the fog of spiritual confusion and manipulation. As we close, remember what Edgar Cayce discovered through thousands of spiritual readings. Your soul came into this lifetime with sacred gifts, sensitivity, intuition, emotional depth, and spiritual knowing. These are not weaknesses to be fixed, they're powers to be honored. Any person who consistently uses these 5 phrases, "You're too sensitive," "I'm just trying to help you," "You're being dramatic," "You're being irrational," or "That's not what I said," is revealing their inability to honor your spiritual sovereignty. According to Edgar Cayce, you have not only the right but the spiritual obligation to protect these gifts by walking away from anyone who seeks to diminish them. Your sensitivity is your superpower. Your emotions are your guidance system. Your intuition is your direct connection to divine wisdom. Your memories and perceptions are your spiritual sovereignty. Edgar Cayce said that when you protect these gifts by choosing relationships that honor them, you align yourself with the highest spiritual forces in the universe, forces that want nothing more than to see you flourish in love, joy, and authentic self-expression. Trust your instincts. Honor your feelings. Protect your spiritual gifts. And remember, walking away from what diminishes you isn't giving up on love, it's making space for the love that truly sees you, honors you, and celebrates the magnificent spiritual being that you are. Edgar Cayce said it best. The soul seeks that which makes it whole. Choose relationships that make you whole, not ones that leave you questioning your own reality. Your spiritual sovereignty is sacred. Protect it. Honor it. And never, ever let anyone convince you that your divine gifts are anything less than miraculous. Thank you so much for staying with me through this exploration. If you found value in today's discussion, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who might benefit from it. And if you'd like to go a step further in supporting this work, you can now leave a super thanks below. It's a small way to say thank you, and it truly helps keep this channel going.